me, this is still sculpture, just being compressed. And it's like a total object, where it's not about, an image on a surface. It's like you cut that up like a cake, and it goes all the way through those dyes. I mean, it's the object of an action, and there's only one. I mean, what I did, you can somewhat addition them, but it's still quite unique, each one, because it's just about the measurements and pressure, and the temperature here is always the same. But it's like you can addition loaves of bread, but really, it's like each one's a little, and that's part of it, because there's just all this nuance that occurs that doesn't occur when you do something like a lithograph or something. Like it's an addition.
How many hours are we talking about in a session? How many hours in a day?
It's a day, it's like 9 to 5, or like 9 to 6. So it's like a full day, and it's a day that I always so look forward to. And my husband's here to testify to that. He'd be so happy. She goes there because when I come here and I get to have the whole day, it means there aren't distractions of all these other things. Like, the mail came, so I have to look at that. It's just like we're fully focused on this one special process we can't do anywhere else. And having the assistance of Paul and Kat who be with me, plus their archive of like, what does it look like to do that? And you can look at other experiments. And it's just a very specialized thing, and yet it's paper and pigmenting in a certain way. But it's, wanting to pull out what can happen with this process.
Is there anything from the archive you learned something particular from?
Well, I saw so many things that made me really excited and interested. I thought that I would try to do something three-dimensional here. Dohosa is an artist who's been working on sort of slowly through his grant, and he's making this very fine paper that is made here into three-dimensional garments that are translucent.
Yes,
and they're so wonderful. So I immediately was drawn to this translucency, and their garments also, and sort of thinking about volume. And it's still in my mind, but I ended up, doing this. And there's a lot of things that were very inspiring in terms of thinking about paper and fiber that I had no idea that I would come to here.
I assume this experience had resonance. How did it inform the work with costumes? Structured, not like this, of course, but architecture, as you say, sculptural. What's the connection between working in this room and what you've gone on to do?
Well, this is still very much in my mind. I'm still hoping to come back and do more, because there is a feeling that happens for me in the three-dimensional work that I make that I like, where you feel this idea of potential motion, and you sort of feel a sense of space. And with these like embossed, we keep trying to figure out what to call them. Are they prints? Are they additions? Are they objects? Like, what are they? Well, there's all these ways, monotypes. To me, it's a very similar sculptural expression that has to do with what I'm doing in space and then pressure, but there's still space, like between the millimeters of depth. And so, I don't know, it's just all of it is still very fresh in my mind. So I kept thinking about the costumes that have all this rich decoration and seams that are so constructed, and like what would happen if I put it, in the crusher and try to use that as a relief, or things like that. I was sort of thinking that there might be other things that would be interesting aside from just costumes.
What was your own hands? What were your hands doing? Were you wearing gloves? Were you touching all of this stuff all the time? Or were you sitting there watching?
Generally, I don't think about wearing, but sometimes, I remember the first ones, I guess, just because, then everything you touch turns blue or whatever. So you got your boots on, and gloves on, and
the music playing. You're working with people.
Thinking about, like what's next, and we're thinking about, what are ways of attaching these things? What kind of paper might, give us this effect or that? was so much just about experimentation. So it was just, your mind is so alive when you're there and you have this situation in this room where you just get to try these things. And then I was so happy eventually that it was like, oh, now we've got to focus. Where the experiment would drive the next experiment. But it wasn't, and then there'd be Steve around or Kat, be like, look at this, and so you have this whole world of people that are here also doing many other things and working on other projects, and so you have all these voices in the room too to sort of say like, oh wow, this really reminds me of that, or what if there is a lot of voices there, but they're also very, it's like it's your space, but there's a lot of information that's here, and you feel like you're in a really special kind of facility where everyone's involved in watching. They're like up there, you can like peek out, and like, oh, that one looked good, like oh, it's funny. And they're working on also making, I think, the largest sheet of paper in the Eastern Seaboard is made here. And so there'd be Steve with the vacuum, like underneath, like sucking the water out, over there, and like, it's like, that's the biggest sheet of paper.
How big a sheet are we talking about?
How big is it? It's huge, just really huge. And so like custom made.
Up to 7 by 10 feet.
Up to 7 by 10 feet?
Yeah.
It's a big sheet of paper.
Beautiful and white. I have to say, like my original preconception of coming in and working in a paper mill, the idea of the kind of what I think of with handmade paper is somewhat like heavily, and it has a real texture to it, and that's not like an aesthetic thing that I think of in my work. I think more kind of ideas of speed and motion, and so I had preconceptions of what to imagine, and like this big piece of paper they make, it looks like a hot press or something, and what we ended up doing has all of this kind of futuristic feeling to it. So just all of these, the fear, the preconceptions, all those things changed, and generally I would come here and I just, would get 5:30. I was like, can we try another one? Can we try another one? I don't want to go. I just really loved just the experimentation and coming up with something that I would have never realized myself as making a 3D and this more.
I understand that after, or coincidental with the show with the New York City Opera, you're going to take on some commissions involving prom dresses and wedding dresses?
Well, I think that, it's like, for the daring, if they're willing to sacrifice their garment and there's a good story there, I'm interested in talking about it, and maybe, there's got to be a story, there's got to be some kind of relationship to something that's larger than just that person, something about that dress that resonates for me. But yeah, and I have been offering that for a couple of years, and no one, people are like, oh yeah, I'd love to do it. I'm like, well really? Well you can. I'm like, oh, I'll think about it. Like, people are so attached to those, the wedding dress or the prom dress, whatever, and I understand, it's fine. Like, I like to pick my own in general, but I'd be interested in, like whoever really was like, take this. A friend of mine gave me a wedding dress and she got divorced and the dress was like, whatever. I was like, I don't want it. It was like not, it didn't, I don't know, it just, the energy wasn't there. But yeah, I'm curious and collaborating in that sense if there's a story, or if they want it in the crusher or something. Interesting.
Evie Day, have a drink, ask her a question.